So hello everybody, and welcome to this next session as part of this Reuters ESG conference. My name is Dr. Bronwyn King and I am the CEO of Tobacco Free Portfolios. Tobacco Free Portfolios is an advocacy organisation and we work all across the globe with the global finance sector to ask leaders in finance to have a rethink about the issue of tobacco. And rather than investing in, lending and insuring tobacco companies, we ask the finance sector to consider rejecting tobacco and to stop lending, investing and insuring, and instead stand side by side with the global health sector and try to bring a solution and bring an end to the terrible problem of tobacco. And I know everyone knows tobacco is bad, but the problem is of an extraordinary scale. In fact, the world is on track for 1 billion tobacco-related deaths this century. It's an extraordinary number, isn't it? 1 billion. And there are many environmental harms associated with tobacco production that is obviously getting increasing awareness in the lead up to COP26. The work of tobacco-free portfolios started over a decade ago, and as many of you would understand very well, the whole concept of sustainable finance, responsible finance was really in its infancy back then. It certainly wasn't mainstream. Yet now, today, we find ourselves in a very different environment. In 2018, Tobacco Free Portfolios was thrilled to launch our global initiative, our flagship initiative. It's called the Pledge, the Tobacco Free Finance Pledge. And we did that with the support of the Government of France, the Government of Australia, multiple different UN agencies, and we were thrilled to have the support of the Director General of the World Health Organization. Now in 2021, there are 175 signatories of that pledge, including some of the world's largest financial institutions from more than 20 countries. And together they control $12 trillion US. Now, I'm very pleased to say that one of those signatories is Crédit Agricole, and it's my great pleasure today to warmly welcome Mr. Philippe Brassac to this session. Mr. Brassac is someone who first joined the Crédit Agricole family back in 1982, and he has been the CEO since 2015. He's also the immediate past chairman of the French Banking Association. And amongst many interests and hobbies, I've just found out that he has a black belt in judo. So we're very keen to hear about that as well. Now, Monsieur Brassac, we met just before the pandemic. And at that time, I really saw that immediately you were very interested in deeply reconsidering the issue of tobacco and having a look at it and integrating it, the concept of tobacco-free into your Crédit Agricole sustainable finance framework. You acted very quickly, you proudly signed the pledge, and over the months and years that have followed, you discussed with me that you, in that time period when you were working through the issue, you reached out to a wide range of stakeholders at the Crédit Agricole community. You also reached out to clients, some of your friends and family, and you had interesting discussions with many of them. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you considered this issue of tobacco and tell us a bit about what that process taught you and what we can learn from it.
Well, first of all, I did not use my black belt to convince people for fighting against tobacco activities. Simply, it's very interesting to report to you that at the very first time when I spoke about this matter, the first reaction as a whole was, this is a personal or private matter. So smoking cigarettes, drinking beers, accepting risks for our life, it's a private situation. So we just have to be compliant with the public rules. And when I heard this point, I always said, well, okay, I understand your point of view, but you really, from your personal point of view, simply would you like your kids, your children to smoke? And then everybody says, no, not for my son, not for my daughter. And this is how really, very naturally, we decided to stop financing tobacco industry. This is a real story of the decision within Crédit Agricole Group.
I think that's such an interesting story. And in fact, in my travels all across the world, I've just heard that so often. I've never met anyone in finance who feels really good about the issue of tobacco, and certainly it's really pleasing to hear that feedback from your experience as well. And so how did stakeholders react? Crédit Agricole signed the pledge on World No Tobacco Day in 2020. How did the community at Crédit Agricole take that decision?
Well, to be sincere, absolutely no reaction from analysts, from investors, from shareholders, I mean, from the financial markets. This was not, and this is not an issue for them. But we received a lot of positive comments from staff and from social networks. So this is not a matter as a listed company. This is a matter in terms of decisions and positive decisions for environment and society. And we had a lot of positive comments on an internal point of view.
Fantastic. That's really great to hear. And I know from working, with many different organisations all across the world that even though on one hand the issue of tobacco sounds quite logical and it sounds like an easy decision, decisions like that can be really hard internally. You've got a lot of different stakeholders and potentially a lot of different motivations and viewpoints. Obviously, the CEO, the chief investment officer, the investment team, the sustainability team, and then often you've got the board of directors. How can we as a sustainable finance community smooth out some of those tensions so that we can move forwards on some of these other very challenging issues in sustainability?
My mind is that the key point is simply to come back to common sense. Companies have naturally to be aligned with the interest of their customers, to develop and to deserve profitability. Really simply, the great shift now, the huge new step in the following one, being not only aligned with the individual interest of each of our customers, but now on top of this, being aligned with the collective interests of the whole society too. And this is simply very difficult, very complex on a methodological point of view. This is not a matter of battle with different points of view. This is simply more difficult to integrate, but for steering the global company, both always towards the individual interests of our customer, and then adding the collective interests of society for tobacco, of course, but for any kind of matter on sustainability for the planet. And my mind, really, I repeat this point, is not a political question. This is a way to find the way to drive the company with these two levels of interest we have to respect.
And while we're talking about these big challenging issues, can you, also I should mention, we're just a few weeks out from COP26, which is the biggest sustainability conference of the moment. Everybody is talking about it. What are the plans for Crédit Agricole at COP26 this time around?
Well, perhaps you know that in COP21 we were the first bank in the world probably to announce our exit from coal financing, and within COP26 many new commitments will be made. And today, the French banking system has announced new commitments about non-conventional petrol and oil and gas activities. I think this is very important, but let me just add, this won't be enough. The battle is not simply a beauty contest in terms of spectacular announcements for the main matters, because this is always special. This is only punctual. We absolutely need to realize in all our different offers what we say on day-to-day activities with each customer to realign with this challenge. It is much more difficult, and this is much more difficult for journalists, people. But I do feel that, of course, we have to make commitments about oil and gas, about Arctic and this kind of topic. But on top of this, we have, on an internal point of view, to integrate this in the saving policy, in the lending policy, in the investing policy. And I can sum up this point saying that ESG mustn't be an added responsibility. It must be now an integrated responsibility. This is not an extra responsibility after business as usual. This must be really an integrated responsibility in each of our business lines. And simply, this is naturally possible because companies can't develop by other ways than respecting interests of society, of environment, and finding solutions for the society. So COP26 is a great momentum for states. It's a good occasion to make some new announcements, but I feel that the most important is to drive this shift within each company, within each bank, and this will be much less spectacular than different announcements.
And I think many people would agree that awareness about how fast we need to move to limit global warming has increased, but it's the action where we're still struggling. And even just last week, the Queen of England was caught on video saying, everybody's talking about it. We're very good at talking. We're not so good at doing. What's your view on that? What other levers do we need to pull to make people act and to make it a little bit faster? Because literally the world is at stake.
I think we have to coordinate because to be sincere, to be frank, this is an absolutely very urgent revolution we have to drive. When I speak about revolution, I mean that we need to change or to get a new technology. We need to find new balanced business model. We need to change behaviors of consumers and so on. But this won't be a natural revolution because for carbon revolution, it was, in quote, natural. First technology, then offer, then demand, then developing, then profitability and so on. Now we can't wait for this. So it's not so easy. The first point is that we still have to finance some unsustainable activities because unfortunately we always need them. But we have mainly to fuel at the highest level the ability to change and to move for production, for consumptions, and so on. And for that we need political frameworks because we need to be shorter in terms of speed, of momentum, non-respecting what we need as balanced business model. And so we need that policymakers can decide of a public framework in which we can act, in which we can really implement all the different solutions society needs. But we don't need to dream in the same time because just this example, we have to hugely invest on green investments. And I can tell you that for the time being, all green investments can find their financing. And we have to withdraw from oil and gas, but during an ongoing process. I mean, this can't be a rupture. And so we have to be very pragmatical in terms of driving this global shift.
And can I ask, when you're talking about sort of instruments or methods to improve the speed that we act, can you give us your views on the EU taxonomy and the role that you see that plays in this process?
Well, this is a difficult question for me because I'm probably one of the rare bankers explaining this point. I'm not so comfortable with the usefulness of taxonomy. Just let me explain this point. For the time being, you see that policymakers are not aligned. They don't agree together. In France, for example, we stopped financing coal, but Germany is always hugely using it. And it is always a significant industry in Poland. And the nuclear topic is not consensual. This is a fact. So at least it is too early to give the hand to bureaucracy and norms. Let me give you an example, explaining why bureaucratic norms can't be relevant enough to integrate the reality. Just this example. Financing wind farms will be absolutely green in the EU taxonomy. Though we know all the doubts we can share on the real carbon balance sheet of this technology. On the contrary, financing a new airplane, the new Airbus A2.2, would have been rated hard brown, even if the progress in terms of reduction of CO2 is impressive. So we shall have regularly this kind of discrepancy because technology is not a target, but an ongoing process. And this is why I think we need the leadership of policymakers, but not strictly and only and directly the leadership of norms and notably of taxonomy.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. I think getting agreement is almost impossible, but I think, if we can use all of the methods out there, all the levers out there to move forwards, as imperfect as that is, at least we're all moving on a journey together. And look, just to finish up, I just want to say that in my work, I've been very lucky to meet incredible leaders all across the world. And I've noticed one trait that's very common in those that are willing to take a position in sustainability, and that really is courage. It's courage to think really big, to think globally, to think in the long term, to have an opinion, and to draw a line in the sand. And some people say, no, finance needs to stay in finance and shouldn't get involved in other issues. And it would be great to just hear your view on that.
Well, of course, we need to be courageous sometimes to times, not only in professional life, but in life. And courageous in our jobs just means accepting to face people who don't share the same points of view. We won't become a hero with that as a fireman or an astronaut. But I think that courageous is necessary. It's not enough. I think another quality is more and more necessary today. Being sincere, being clear, very honest on an intellectual point of view. Why do I explain that? Because we need to convince, we need to lead, we need to motivate and give sense. And this is not a matter of professional authority. So I think courageous, of course, is a quality for life. But now to drive the different shift, I think the most important quality is to be sincere and try to explain what we think we have to do and to convince many people to come with you.
Fantastic. Thank you. So look, I think I just want to bring out a few of those great comments you made, because there was a little bit of interference there, but just to reiterate, some of the great points, to come back to common sense, to make sure that we integrate ESG as a responsibility across all business lines, to increase coordination across sectors, find new business models, encourage new behaviours. And in the end, we need to be courageous. But it's not just about courage, it's about sincerity and convincing people to change in a way that perhaps, the world has never had to change before. So merci mille fois, Monsieur Brassac. It's been a great pleasure to have you here today. And I do hope all viewers at home have enjoyed this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.